And a very warm welcome to the podcast, Craig Hane. How are you today, Craig?
Great. How are you, David?
Wonderful. So let's get this started as I always do. Where are you right now on planet Earth?
I am right near the center of the United States of America. I'm about 50 miles from what's called the Crossroads of America.
Okay, and what is the
It's
crossroads of America?
from Chicago to Miami. There was a road called US 41 and east and west US 40. And where they intersect is called Crossroads of America. I used to have my building there where my business was. And today I'm about 50 miles from there in a little town called Ellisville, Indiana.
Wow. And what is Ellisville, Indiana like? If you were to give a travel review of somebody wanting to move there and live there, what would you say are the top qualities of this area?
Well, it depends on where in Ellisville you live. It's near a city called Bloomington, Indiana, which is where Indiana University is.
Okay.
And live in a home that is even though it's in the town, it's in the woods. And today, for example, we're having winter, and I have lots of squirrels and chipmunks and birds on my back porch eating food that I put out for them. And it's just a wonderful, idyllic, peaceful place. And I've traveled the world in my younger years, and now I just travel the world on YouTube and on the internet.
And temperature-wise, you mentioned there the animals are coming for a bit of food. How cold is it at the moment?
It's freezing right now. We had a 9-inch snow here a few weeks ago. It's it's right around freezing now. And so I just put the food out, put peanuts out and other food for them, and they come and eat it and love it. And but we have a mild climate. We'll have a nice spring and fall and summer, and it's a wooded area. We live in the southern part of Indiana. Indianapolis is the capital of Indiana, and I'm about 50 miles south of Indianapolis.
So how do you manage that in the winters? I mean, with so much snow, because in Ireland we had a bit of snow here a few weeks ago, and we were kind of like it was the end of the world. So how
No,
do you
it's
manage that on a daily basis?
well, I'm far enough north. It's no big deal. We have snow plows and everything, and we have cars with front wheel drive. It's never a problem. They clean the roads off when we go, and it's no big deal. And I live in a home. We have a furnace. Um, in fact, I have three heating systems in my home. It's not a big home, but I have three heating systems in it. And so if one goes out, I got the other one. And it's an easy life. I've lived in Indiana all my life. I was born and raised in Indiana, not too far from here, up in a place called Greencastle. And then I have a Ph.D. in mathematics from Indiana University, but I lived in Western Indiana in Terre Haute for many years. I was a professor of mathematics at Indiana State University and Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. And then I've been in business all these years, and my business has taken me all over the country.
Can I ask you then, Craig? Okay, obviously the main topic of our chat today is kind of making mathematics a little bit more, especially for somebody like me who didn't really enjoy it, didn't find a kind of a simplistic way of doing it in school or later on in life. Um, what inspired you, first of all, to get into mathematics?
Well, it's a very long story,
You
but
can
when
go
I
ahead.
was, I don't, you know how old I am? You've
I
studied me.
I was going to say, Craig, I don't embarrass you. I was going to say at least 35.
Oh yeah, okay. Now listen, I know you're Irish, but you're not. Don't pull a James Joyce on me. I'm not Buck Mulligan, okay?
Okay.
Um, I I I remember Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor happened 1 week after my third birthday.
No way. Okay.
Now, I was born in 1938. I'm 80. I'm in my 87th year right now, and
Congratulations.
I have no aches, no pains. I don't take medicine. I'm active. I'm healthy, and so on. Now, what happened was during World War II, my parents were working. Everybody was working during World War II. My uncle Jack Davis was a barber and a builder, and he taught me to count when I was 5 years old. And when I went to school they enrolled me in school when I was five. I was the only kid in my class been taught to count. And so I had my first teaching experience when I was five. Now, I tell all this in a book I've written called How and Why Public School Math is Destroying the USA. You can get a free copy of my book on my website, a PDF copy, or you can buy it on Amazon. And I explain my whole story in there. The bottom line of it is I was blessed in my life with three great teachers. And if it hadn't been for any one of the three, you'd have never heard of me. And they empowered me to learn mathematics. And by the way, I was a victim of the school system. I was told when I was a freshman in high school that I would never go to college because I had not done well in algebra when I was a freshman in high school. And then I had a teacher that saved me, and we came out of it. And so I've been teaching math ever since I was 5 years old and learning math and applying math. And I ended up with a Ph.D. in mathematics and algebraic number theory. But my favorite thing is teaching high school students. And I've been doing that now for decades. And I have an online program. So you ask what you can learn in math. I would teach you what I would do with any young adult. First, I teach them how to use a TI-30XA scientific calculator. You ever hear that?
Oh yeah, we've used one
I
of
don't.
them with great confusion. Yeah, but go ahead. Go on. Tell me.
Well, there's about 50 things this calculator will do, and there's less than 20 of them you need to know. There's a whole bunch of stuff you'll never use. So I teach you the things you need to know. And it takes most students about 2 or 3 weeks to learn it online, tutorial videos, notes and exercises, just like me as a tutor, only it's all online, it's automated. That's why I taught thousands of students. They learn to use a calculator. And if they're afraid of math, they don't like math, all of a sudden they like it. Oh, that's easy. Then I teach you, once you've learned to use the calculator, you do all your arithmetic now with a calculator. I teach you practical algebra and practical geometry and practical trigonometry. Those three subjects, one semester.
So, what is a semester for, say, for listeners, say in Ireland or the UK or whatever? Is that weeks, months? What is a semester?
Oh, 3 or 4 months.
3 and 4 months.
That's that's assuming it takes you about 60 to 80 hours. So it depends on how intensely you study. I've had students go through it in 1 month. Some students take 6 months. It's all self-paced. It's all online. You control the pacing of it. You take the training whenever you want it. You come back, you review it. I use what's called, and I explain all this in my book, by the way. If you get this book, or go to my website, craighane.com, get a free PDF copy of this book, and I explain my program. Now, once you've learned practical math, you can stop and go and get a technical job, go to the military. That's fine. But if you want to go on in math, then I have upper tiers. And for example, if you want to go to science and engineering, I then teach those same subjects at a much deeper level. And I use a modern tool that makes it much easier than it used to be. The modern tool is called Wolfram Alpha. And it's free. It came out in 2009. And now you'll learn, for example, calculus in one semester. And you'll learn differential equations in one semester because of the tool. The old manual way is very difficult. The modern way is very easy.
So, what is this Wolfram Alpha? What is it specifically?
It is there was a programming language that came out in 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 1988 by Steve Wolfram. Steve Wolfram was from England, by the way, and he was a brilliant young. It's a long involved story, but he used a tool that MIT had called Maxima to learn math and do physics. And he got so good at it as a teenager in England that he went to America and got a Ph.D. in theoretical physics in 1978 at age 20, working with the greatest physicists of the era, Richard Feynman and so on. Okay. He wanted to build a better tool, so he built a programming language. He made a programming language called Mathematica, introduced to the world in 1988. It's a programming language called Mathematica. Okay. Now, Steve Jobs, who was the guy that founded Apple, had left Apple in 1985 and had created a new thing called the Next Computer. And he and Steve Wolfram knew each other, the two Steves, and they bundled Mathematica onto the Next Computer, and all the scientists and the engineers in the world bought it. It was expensive. 12 of them over in Switzerland in Chern. And Tim Berners-Lee took that tool, Mathematica, and created something you've probably heard of. It's called the World Wide Web.
Yes.
That was created with Mathematica.
So,
It's pro-
yeah, go on,
now,
continue. Go ahead, go on.
now, as the years went on, Mathematica became more and more powerful and stronger. He built it up, and he decided then that he could create a program in Mathematica that you could ask it questions in ordinary language, math questions, and it would solve them for you. And they introduced that to the world in 2009. Wolfram Alpha is a Mathematica program. I don't know, maybe 50 million lines of code. It runs on some big computer somewhere. So when you go to Wolfram Alpha, and it's free on the internet, anybody can go to it, Wolfram Alpha, ask it a question. You got to know how to ask it, and it will solve it for you mathematically. And I'm talking about any kind of a math problem you can imagine, it'll solve for you. And I learned about that when it came out. And that's when I started my company called Triad Math. You see down on the word screen, Triad Math. I'd wanted to revolutionize high school math education. And so that's what I did, starting in about 2011. And then I've developed this online program. And the upper tiers, I use Mathematica. Now, the lower tiers, in practical math, I just use a calculator, $10 calculator. At least in the United States today, it's about $16. I don't know what it costs in other parts of the world.
What is then, if we go back to basics, what is practical mathematics? Are we talking about everyday use type of stuff or sufficient
Yes,
within the college?
it's what you use for any technical subject: hydraulics, pneumatics, electrical, landscaping, cooking, whatever. It is, for example, um, first of all, you have to learn what is called algebra. Algebra is a tool that you'll use then. And in practical algebra, when I teach it to, is only 10 lessons, and they're easy. Then I apply it to geometry. Now, geometry is how long is something, what is the area, what is the volume. 19 lessons. So now you got 10 algebra, 19 geometry, and now you'll be able to solve any kind of how long is something, what is the area, what is the volume. Now, what you can't do with just algebra and geometry alone is angles. You need a subject called trigonometry. And I teach you practical trigonometry, and it's 7 lessons. And now you're done. You're ready for the military. You're ready to go into any technical school for any technical subject. You're ready for it.
Is this possible for, how would you say, the most non-interested students who would be probably similar to myself in school in my own experience, because I just found the subject quite boring, right? And I'm not saying that in a negative way, but how do
No,
you
no, no,
encourage
no.
them?
You're typical. The
Yeah,
reason is the way math has been taught historically. I talk about how and why public school math is destroying the USA. When you take math, at least in the United States now, I'm not going to talk about the rest of the world, but in the United States, when you take math in a public school or a private school, for all the important things that you need to know, they'll put in 9 things you'll never need to know, and they're hard to learn, and you find you're boring. So
yeah.
most people get very discouraged by math, or at least put off by it. But and so the only reason they study it is because they have to do it because they want to get a grade. And that's not a good reason. You need to be intrinsically motivated. And when you take my program, it's like a game. You enjoy it. You go, oh, this is valuable. I'm going to use this. I can see where I could use it. It's intrinsic motivation. And I have a thing called the Triad Math Tribe, where I talk about a lot of what I call wisdom tools. And one of them is, if you're going to get good at anything in life, you got to be intrinsically motivated, whether it's music or poetry or dancing or mathematics or technology. So when you take my program, most students, first of all, they overcome their fear. They see the value of it because they see they're going to be able to use it, and they become intrinsic. It's almost like playing a game, and they enjoy it. And by the way, you learn math by doing math, not just listening to someone talk about it. I teach you something in a tutorial video, comes off Amazon Web Services. I teach you how to do something, and then you go do it with exercises, and then you take a quiz to prove you've done it, like climbing a ladder. There's only one grade you get when you take my program, and that's called the A. You're going to learn math. You either know it or you don't know it.
How has it then, Craig, changed since you were a 5-year-old mathematics over the years? I mean, has it become
It's gotten worse.
It's gotten worse. In what way? Just to explain it. I mean, has it become more simplistic, or are they not
No, no,
challenging the
no, no, it's
students
no,
now?
it's, no, no, no. The way it's taught math in school today with your textbooks, I'm talking the United States now. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
talking about the United States.
yeah. It's similar in Ireland
The,
as well. It was similar in Ireland, just the textbooks.
well, I'm only going to talk to the United States.
Yeah.
And if you're in another country, that may not apply to you. Okay. they keep putting more stuff in the textbooks all the time. They keep adding stuff into it that they find interesting. So, for example, you studied algebra, I'm guessing, when you were a student,
Yes. Yep.
and you probably remember having to learn something called the quadratic equation.
Similar to that. Yep. Yep.
And you didn't like it, and you didn't know what it was good for, and they didn't tell you what it was good for. And I guarantee you, it's something that you'll never use unless you're in science, because what the quadratic equation is, it shows you how to find the roots of a parabola.
Yep.
Well, unless you're in science, you don't care about that. So people learn that and they never use it. I'll give you another example. That's something that's obsolete. And they have all kinds of manual tools that are obsolete that they teach you that you'll never use. Another thing is theory. For example, when you took algebra, you probably were talking about what's called the square root of 2.
Yeah.
You know what the square root of a number is? Square root of 9 is 3, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the square root of 2? What kind of a number is the square root of 2? Do you remember?
Geez, one, is it? Or is it two?
The square root of 2 is what is called an irrational number.
Right.
And you were taught that in algebra, probably. It's in the algebra books. Now, here's the point. Nobody cares except a theoretical mathematician. No scientist cares. No engineer cares. It's a theoretical idea. And they make you learn it when you're like a freshman if they in a high school. It's crazy. So they're teaching you stuff that you don't care about, you'll never use, and it's difficult.
Yes.
And
So,
so that's what's wrong with math. It's gotten worse over the years. It's worse today than it was back when I was a student.
see, it's interesting you said that, Craig, because you mentioned there that what is the square root of two? Okay. So that would be my reaction in a school environment because there was no correct explanation for that. You know,
Oh, oh, no, no. You prove it. It's in the algebra book, and they'll prove to you
Mhm.
that the square root of 2 is irrational. It's a pretty simple proof, actually. But the point is, who cares?
Yeah.
Why do you have to learn this? Is something that you don't will never care about and never use. So I only teach you things that you will use in a technical subject that are practical.
What about technology now, moving forward? So with the likes of the introduction of AI, um, how do you think that's going to affect? Because I mean, we have all these tools at the moment when we're texting and we're predictive text and it's correcting our spelling and so on. What do you think about the mathematics with AI or just
Well,
technology in general, Craig?
yeah, AI is going to revolutionize the world we live in. There's no doubt about it. It's phenomenal what it does. I use AI myself now for a lot of things I do, and it's a phenomenal thing. And it's just beginning. It's AI has been around for 50 years, but it's only been recently that when they got the large learning management systems going with Google and DeepMind and now OpenAI, now it's gotten powerful. And when you learn mathematics, the way I teach it, you know the concepts of it now. And really, Wolfram Alpha is an AI tool. Wolfram Alpha, which came out in 2009, you ask it a math question and it solves it for you. And boom, and it does it in ways that you cannot do it manually. In fact, and in fact, if it can be done manually, Wolfram Alpha will even show you how to do it manually if you want to know. But uh, so my belief is you learn the concepts of math, the number system, basic geometry, the basic concepts, and then that will enable you to ask AI things that you need to ask it. Like Wolfram Alpha is of no value if you don't know the concepts to even ask it a question. So, and I believe in the future, by the way, that there's going to be two kind of sapiens going forward. There's going to be sapiens that use AI to amplify their ability. I use AI all the time. I use it every day.
Right.
And I have for a long time with Wolfram Alpha. Now I'm using it with other tools that are out there. And if you don't use AI, then you won't be able to do most of the jobs that'll be out there because most jobs are going to use AI as a tool to make it to amplify your ability. So, for example, today, this is not an AI tool, but you can think of it that way. If I ask you, okay, we're doing a problem, I say, what is 369 times 83? You can do it manually, or you can just say, oh, it's 30,627. So this is like a little AI tool. when calculators came out in 1972, it revolutionized the way you do math for engineering. Well, the AI tools today are doing that for all kinds of subjects today. For example, if you want to write a paper today, you tell it what you want to say, and then the AI tool will write it for you and make it really nice.
What would you say to the parents? So say, for example, Craig, who's 5 years of age, we go back those years and to generate an interest in a child wanting to learn mathematics from a young age, what would you say to the parents to kind of encourage them?
Join the Triad Math Army,
That was a very
period.
simplistic
That's it,
answer.
period.
So,
Because what that'll do is, number one, that's something I just formed about 2 years ago. It's new. First of all, it's $30 a month in the United States. I'm talking now, $30 a month,
yep.
and it's got all the math in it that we're talking about that you'll ever need to know, and you can use it to teach your children. So if you're a parent with kids, for 30 a month, you got all the math you need for your whole family. On top of that, I have what I call wisdom tools. And there's a whole long list of wisdom tools that I have learned that have helped me improve my life. I've had a fascinating life. And people that know me, they go, how did you, for example, um, I've applied math to business, and then I've traveled the world, and I've had habits, good habits and bad habits. One of the things I talk about in wisdom tools is your life is going to be determined by your behavior, by your actions. And so the wisdom tools are all about what consequences will you have for certain actions. So, for example, now I'm sure as an Irishman, you probably don't, you don't probably drink much, but there was a time in my life
I don't drink at all.
I drank at one point in my life a quart of whiskey every day.
Okay.
I was in England one time and visiting England, and I would drink 7 pints of Guinness in a day. Now, I smoked cigarettes. I took Valium as a tranquilizer. I took Maalox to settle my stomach because I had a Duane ulcer. I took suppositories because I had bleeding hemorrhoids. All those things. I was a young man. Guess what? I was blessed to get the wisdom from some sources I explain in the wisdom tool, and I stopped all that because when I was 30 years old, everybody that knew me thought that I would die by the time I was 40. And I thought they were probably right. If I hadn't have reformed myself and changed we're all addicted to things. We all have habits. That's sapient condition. You couldn't live without your habits and your addictions. But there's good habits and there's bad habits and there's good addictions and bad addictions. And that's what I talk about in the TriMath Army. And I have all kinds of wisdom tools to help people understand that so that they can improve their life on an ever increasing basis. And that's the TriMath Army. And that's what I would have anybody join. And I'll guarantee you, if you join, the way it works is you go to join it, it's $30 a month. The first month is free. If you don't like it, you drop out. It didn't cost you anything. And you should learn a lot in the first 30 days. You stay in the Army, and then it's 30 days a month. On top of that, if you recruit other Army members, I pay you to do that.
Okay.
In other words, if you recruit another Army member paying 30 a month, I give you $10 of that for you because I want to encourage people to help other people. And so the TriMath Army is the number one thing I would send people to today. And if they go to my website, there's links to take you there and you'll learn about that.
And is this the TriMat Army? Are you planning, is it mainly for the United States or are you planning to for everywhere?
No, no, it's on the internet, so anybody can join.
So there's no restrictions then in Ireland or the UK or no.
No, everything's in English. I only speak English. And so if you don't understand English, it probably won't do you any good. Because all of my videos for my wisdom tools are me on videos explaining something. What's a convex option? If you know what a convex option is, you might get tripped up like I did. It cost me $1 million to find out what a convex option was because I got caught. So I teach you. Now you can maybe avoid that mistake. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I've been bankrupt twice, but I've made millions of dollars. I've traveled the world.
So
I've been everywhere I want to go.
what is a convex option then? Craig.
Join the Triad Math Army and you'll learn. By the way, go join it. That's a very good point, though. Go
Yeah.
join it. You give your credit card, and you got 30 days, and we don't charge your credit card till the end of 30 days. If you don't want to stay in it before the 30 days is up, you send an email, say, I don't want to stay in it. We'll never charge you. So then you won't have any charge your credit card. And during that time, you can learn all kinds of stuff. And one of them will be convex options. But you'll learn a lot of other stuff even more important than that. Believe me, how to win an argument, how not to lose an argument, how to deal with difficult people, intrinsic versus extrinsic motivators, what is flow, on and on and on. There's all kinds of, and by the way, I learned all these things from other people. Flow is something you don't learn about. I learned that from the chairman of the psychology department at the University of Chicago, Csikszentmihalyi, as you name it. He wrote a book called Flow, and it helped me improve my life, and on and on and on. I am 80 in my 87th year, and by the way, even now I'm learning new things. I'm still, um, I think right now I'm anticipating, barring catastrophe, living to be about 105. At that point, I'm not sure what's going to happen because of the the longest you can live today is 120 because of the telomere problem. They're gonna, but
Say that
these
again,
things are all
Craig. You can live because of the what problem?
the telomere problem. If you know
Okay.
DNA and biology, at the there's a thing called telomeres at the end, and they keep shortening down. And right now, no human being today can live past 120. Most people die long before then, but they're going to solve that problem because today we've got something called CRISPR, and that is letting us go in and change DNA. And I, I, when you know math, you can study all these things. I understand large learning management systems. I understand when I say understand it in a conceptual way. And the, the world is it's changing so rapidly now. And you pointed out AI tools. Well, that's I think it's going to empower people to live even beyond 120. I'm planning. I don't think I'm going to need. I haven't been in a hospital since I was 6 years old. Okay,
Okay.
had my tonsils out when I was 6 years old, and I think that probably in 10 years or so, or 12 years, I'm probably going to need something is going to fail in my body. I'll need an organ transplant, and they'll have artificial organs by that time. Not today, but they will by then. I may need a kidney. I may need a heart. In fact, the only organ that we can't transplant will be our brain. And that we don't understand the brain at all. The brain is way more complicated than we understand. Believe me. If you study, uh, Roger Penrose, the great physicist from England.
I don't know him personally, but go ahead.
Well, you know of him. And then he worked with Stuart Hameroff, and they talked about microtubules in the neurons and all that. I mean, I spent all my I spent a lot of my time just learning about what's going on. I watch YouTube videos. Everything, all the stuff I'm talking about, you can learn about this stuff on YouTube videos. Now, there's a lot of crap on YouTube, but there's a lot of good stuff. And Penrose is he's a great, brilliant. In fact, they gave him a Nobel Prize fairly recently. He's in his 90s now, and how much longer it'll last, who knows? But he's
So
older
what?
than me.
So what's your daily routine then? Just a little bit of sidetrack here because you're talking about telomere problems, CRISPR, all this type of stuff, which I'll be honest with you, I've never heard about before. And so, what is your routine when you get up in the morning, or do you sleep, or what do you do?
All right, I live in Indiana, and we're on Eastern time. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I usually go to bed. In fact, I'm in my bed right now.
Okay.
I'm in my bed right now. It's not a chair. It's a fold out chair.
Okay.
I usually go to bed about 2 in the morning. Sometimes a little earlier, but usually about 2. And I sleep until about 10 in the morning. So about 8 hours,
Okay.
typically. And then I get up and I have some special coffee I make, and I drink some coffee. And then I begin my day, and I do Zoom meetings. Sometimes I do 3 or 4 a day. I do videos. I did a video this morning. I put a new web page up. I have a team that I work with, and I give them things to do. And then I'm on YouTube all the time studying what's going on in the world, what's happening today in the world. I consider it the Sapien Zoo, and it's more interesting than any novel I've ever read or any movie I've ever watched. So I watched what's happening today. And of course, the United States is really interesting because of Donald Trump and all the new shit's going on. And now we got the Ukraine thing, and Europe's all screwed up, and Europe doesn't know what to do, and blah, 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 blah. It could go on and on and on, right? The
Yeah.
Mideast is all, and I'm watching this crazy Donald Trump and Elon Musk do their things, and I get a big kick out of it. I enjoy it. To me, I'm not political. I'm above politics. I just am watching the world, and then I'm trying to help people. I literally have lots and lots of people then that I am helping with the Triad Math Army, and with my math as well as the army, and I do that all day long. Then I just do that, and I exercise some. I cook my own food. I eat my own food. I cook my own food. I just had a couple deviled eggs I just made, and and then I play with the animals. I have a family, by the way. I have children and grandchildren, and I play with them. That's my social life is my grandchildren and my wife. I've been married. Well, I've been married twice now. I'm on my second marriage now, and we let I don't want to get. Let's just say we get together frequently,
Okay.
and
We'll say no more.
but I've only been married 58 years to her, to my second wife.
Wow. I mean,
She,
you mentioned Craig. Sorry, you had special coffee. So, what are we talking? I mean, what's so special about your coffee, or is it just
well,
standard
I
coffee?
learned how to make it from a nurse many years ago. What I do is I take coffee, ground coffee,
Hmm.
doesn't matter what kind really, and I soak it in cold water a long time, and then I run it through a filter, and now I've got concentrated coffee. It doesn't have any of the acid in it.
Right.
And then I take some of that, mix it with coconut milk and a little honey, and that's my coffee. But I never, so my coffee's never brewed.
What do I mean? Your grandchildren, your children, your wife think of uh, of Craig? What is their? I mean,
That's them.
what's their opinion? I mean, do they give out to you and say, Dad, get out off YouTube, or Dad, go on holiday, or Granddad, play with us in the garden
No, no.
with the animals.
First of all, I've traveled the world with all of them in the past. For example, when my two oldest, I have three children, and my two oldest children were like 10, 11. I had a business where I traveled the country delivering technical training and in a motor home. And we did that for 4 summers. And so my children have been to every state in the United States, except not Alaska and Hawaii, but in the continental United States. And so they got to go to all the museums and all the other stuff. And I teach during the day. Then at night, we'd sit around a campfire and have a good time. We did that for 4 years, put 100,000 miles on a motorhome. Okay. Then we've traveled a lot all over the world. Uh, Istanbul, Greece, Italy, Europe, England. I've never been to Ireland, by the way, oddly enough. I've been up to Scotland, to Loch Ness and all that, because uh, my wife's ancestors came from Scotland. So I've been to Scotland, to their home where they came from. And then, of course, Costa Rica, South America, Peru. I've never been to the Far East. I've never been to China or Japan. My wife has gone there several times, but I let her go with her sister because I don't like to travel that far in an airplane. I know you're
Right.
a pilot. 4 hours is about as far as I want to go in an airplane.
Okay.
I could go further if I needed to. I used to have a phobia of flying an airplane. I took private license and I could fly myself in a small plane. And so I can fly now, but I don't particularly enjoy it. And I'm not afraid of it. I just don't like it. Anyway, so now my oldest son had a learning disability, which we helped him overcome. He's not very good at math. He could do adequate math, but he's very good at got a memory. And he is. Have you ever heard of a company called Deloitte Consulting?
I haven't. No, I'll be honest, I haven't. Are they in the States?
Well, it's the world's largest consulting company. Okay,
Okay.
the world's largest,
Okay.
and he's a managing director,
Wow. Okay.
and he has lots of people working for him. My daughter, 2 years younger, has a Ph.D. in computer science. She's a foundation professor at Michigan State University and associate vice president of research and development. Works right under the president of Michigan State University up in Michigan.
Wow.
And my youngest son didn't even go to college because he studied on his own and he's financially independent as a businessman. He just does philanthropy. Now, in the Triad Math Army, I'm teaching people what I taught my children and myself, the wisdom tools. There's a whole bunch of them.
So what do you think yourself, Craig? Was there a point in your life that you felt that a bit lost and that none of this was going to work out? Was this always a positive kind of arrow pointing up as you progressed through the years, or was there moments that you kind of went, oh, I know you mentioned that you lost a bit of money, and
I get your question. I answered the question in this book, by the way, and here's the answer. I grew up during World War II, like I told you, lived in the woods till I was 12 years old with my family, but we had a little wooden house in the woods. No water, no running water, no central heat, cooked on a kerosene stove in the woods. I loved it. It was idyllic. I loved it. My parents both were working people. They never went to church, but my grandparents on my father's side were very poor, and they had to live with their children because they couldn't. And they went to the Nazarene church. It was a Christian church, and I went with them one year, and I had a Sunday school teacher named Theron York. Now, Aunt Ines had read all the Old Testament stories to me when I was real young. Theron York was teaching me what's in the New Testament. So I learned about the golden rule: don't judge others, love everyone. By the way, it's extremely difficult to follow the rules in the golden that are in the New Testament. Most people don't even understand the golden rule. They don't know how to apply them. Okay. What he taught me, though, the most important thing Theron taught me was, Craig, what you believe is what will happen to you in your life. God will, whatever you think of the world, will cause it to happen. And now it's not what you desire, it's what you believe. Big difference between desires and beliefs, by the way. So I learned how to form my beliefs by telling myself stories in my head. I'd walk in the woods, I'd fantasize, this is going to happen. And time after time after time in my life, something that was improbable happened because I believed it. And that's what I teach that in the Triad Math Army. Your beliefs will determine. If you think you're going to be healthy, if you believe it, you will be. If you believe you're going to get sick, you're going to get sick. If you believe you're going to have cancer, you're going to get cancer. On and on and on. Now, I've got a I got a bunch of free videos on my website, and one of them is called Math Proves God Exists. Nothing to do with religion. It has to do with science and math. Have you ever heard of Dr. William Tiller?
yes.
Okay, well, I'm a big Tiller fan. I've been studying Tiller's work for 30 years now, or 25 years, and he knows he's proven that there's a non-physical universe in addition to our physical universe, and he's proven it scientifically. Nothing to do with religion. And so I believe that our brain is a receiver transmitter from the physical to, and I think our memories and our consciousness is in the physical part of us. And when we die physically, our body will die physically, but our non-physical body, it's not in the space-time domain, it's in a frequency domain, goes on. And I believe that. And so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but um, I've I've always had positive beliefs about what would happen to me, and they've always come true. And sometimes God, in order to make a belief come true, something bad has to happen to you. I've been bankrupt twice in my life. And both times, thank God it happened because it led to something better. I've had many failures in my life, what you would call failures. I start a business, it's successful, and then it fails financially. That led to the next one that was even better, and the next one, and on and on. And I tell that story in this book, and I also, my story. And so, and what is grief? I didn't understand grief for a long time. Now I understand it. And so cause most of the people I know my age are dead. Certainly all my older family, but even my friends that are my age are mostly dead. I'm 80, I'm in my 87th year. And I don't grieve for them because I know that they're in a non-physical world that's different. So I don't worry about physical death. I don't worry about it at all. I don't even think about it. I know it'll happen. My physical body will die, but I don't care. I mean, what happens, it happens. It could happen 10 minutes from now. I happen to believe that it won't happen until at least I'm 105. So I got another almost 20 years to go. And now what do I want to do in life? What I've always enjoyed doing is helping other people improve their lives. I've done that all my life, try to help other people improve their lives. And there's an old saying in the Bible, it's all right to give a man a fish, but it's better to teach a man to fish. So what I'm spending my life doing with the Triad Math Army and Math is I'm teaching people how to improve their life. Not just give them something, but teach them something.
I like that. I've never
That's
heard
what
it
I do today.
before. I like that though. That's yeah, that's a feel good.
I don't need money. I'm financially independent. I'm not rich. I don't. Theron York told me when I was 10 years old, Craig, if you live the life right, if you live by the right rules that your life, which are the things we talked about, I have a set of rules I follow. I got 12 rules I follow that I've actually written down. I think about them every day. If you live by the right rules of your life, you'll never want money. You'll always have all you need to feed yourself. And I've always have had that. Even when I went bankrupt, I had plenty of money to live my life with myself and my children. I went bankrupt when my children were um, 6, 7, 8 years old because I had a business, a long involved story, and I went bankrupt. But it didn't bother me because I had my family, and they just kept on going. And we were never homeless or houseless, let's put it that way, and so on. In fact, I went bankrupt when I was 70 years old. The banks took me under. I was worth several $1,000,000 in 2008, and when the bank collapse happened, they took me down with it, and I lost everything. Lost the house I lived in. Lost my house. I don't call it my home because my home's wherever I live, but I lost my house. Beautiful house. Well, actually, I'm glad it happened because I I wouldn't have started Triad Math if it hadn't been for that.
But how did you feel when it did happen? For anybody that's going through something similar, that they build up a business.
The only negative I felt was for my wife because she loved the house we lived in and we lost the house. But she's a very strong woman, very brilliant woman, very beautiful woman, and she took it in stride. When I met her, when I was 27 years old, and it was the last year of graduate school, I was about to get my Ph.D. And I went to a party that I didn't want to go to, and she went to the same party she didn't want to go to, and she was 19 years old, and we met. And it's kind of funny. She's so beautiful that she was sitting in a chair by herself, and nobody would bother her. People were intimidated to go over to her. She's so beautiful, for whatever the reason. I was intimidated. And I had a friend of mine, a student, come and ask me if I could show him how Archimedes had trisected an angle using a compass and a ruler. You can't do it with a compass and a straight edge, but you can do it with a compass and a ruler. And he wanted to know how. His name was Jim Allman. And so I'm on down the floor and I'm teaching him how to do it on the floor. And by the way, I'm drinking Beefeater gin. I'm about half drunk. And I looked around and she's sitting down next to me watching me do this. And I said, hi. And she said, oh, hi. I said, well, I'm Craig. She said, I'm Mary. And we just celebrated our 57th or 58th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations. Congratulations. I mean,
Most beautiful, most beautiful woman I ever met in my life.
what are you looking for, Craig? You know she's going to listen to this and watch this video. So what are you looking for? What's going on? There's obviously a reason behind your loveliness. Oh, Valentine's Day is tomorrow. That's what it is.
No, not it. No, no. I'm just telling you my story.
Yeah.
In other words, I was married once before. I married when I was 21 years old. I married a beautiful young woman from New Orleans. Beautiful young woman, very sexy, and she taught me so many things that I didn't know about making love to a woman. And and then after about 2 years of marriage, and we loved each other, we wanted to go. She didn't want children. I did want a family. She wanted a different kind of life than I did, and we knew that. So we divorced, friendly divorce. And then I knew what I wanted in a woman at that point. I had a vision in my mind, the kind of woman that I wanted to marry. And it was highly improbable that very few women would have met my vision. And then I went to that party I told you about, and there she sits. And then we met, and then we had a date the next night, and I got to talking to her, and I found out she wanted what I wanted. She's very brilliant, intelligent, and beautiful, but she didn't want a professional career. Her mother was a matriarch of a family, very successful. What my wife wanted was to be a wife and a mother and participate in my adventures. And she knew I wanted adventures in life, and I've had lots of adventures. I tell some of them in my book. I've had lots and lots and lots of adventures, and she wanted that. And we got married, and we've had that. Now, so when I went broke, and when I was 70 years old, not 2008, uh, I wasn't happy about it because I was mad at the banks. I fought the banks, by the way, for 2 years. Went all the way to the Indiana Supreme Court, fought the banks, and I lost. It was fine. We had our family. The family was doing great. We had each other. And then I started trying math. And I wouldn't have probably started if I hadn't done it. Because when I had several $1,000,000, I spent too much of my damn time worrying about the money. So really, too much money is almost worse than not enough money. They're
Yeah.
both bad. You want just the right amount of money. You don't want too much. You don't want too little. I had a friend once that said, "You say all I want is $1 a day more than I need." That's the right amount.
But
And and and, and that's
it
kind of what
is.
I have now. I have all the money I need to live the life I live, but I'm not a rich man. I don't. And so what I'm doing with Triad Math and the Triad Math Army is to help other people. I have to make some money doing it because I've got a lot of people, working. We got several $1,000,000 of things invested in doing this, and there's overhead. So I can't just give it all away for free. But my God, it's for every dollar you invest in Triad Math, you'll probably make $1,000.
I tell you something, Craig. It's just looking at you here in the camera, you're so enthusiastic and knowledgeable. And if anybody's listening, the way to a woman's heart is algebra. So the next date that you're on, get the old algebra out, the calculator out, and that'll definitely that'll definitely win nearly every woman's heart over. But no, it's just fascinating stuff. I want to ask you then. So what are the general misconceptions of learning math that you have experienced throughout the years? That people come
Of
to you.
what? Of what?
Misconceptions.
Of what?
Oh, you can hear me, you know what I'm asking.
Misconception of math, you mean?
Yeah, so so if somebody comes to you, what's the biggest question you always get, or what do people ask
Well,
you?
here's the situation. Mathematics is a huge subject. Think of music. Think of all the music in the world. How much music can you learn and listen to and so on? Only a small part of it. So there's certain music you like, certain music you don't like. Okay. Suppose I went to you and I said, okay, David, I'm going to teach you music. And the first thing you got to do is you got to learn all about Gregorian chants. What do you think I'd do for your love of music?
No, it's gone, destroyed. Because I don't even know what
That's
Gregorian chants are really, specifically.
Well, that's the point I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And what they're teaching in schools today is the math, but be like Gregorian's chants. They're teaching math that you don't care about, you don't want to learn. So that's the problem with math. And so what you should go to somebody is find some music that they enjoy and it will be beneficial to them, and then they'll learn music. That's what I do. And that's not what our schools are doing.
What success stories have you had, Craig, that you like with students over the years that kind of stood out in your mind?
I'll tell you two.
Okay.
There's lots of them. There's a young man that was in the military, United States military, and he got wounded in Afghanistan. And he and they so he's out of the army now. He was going to make a career in the army, and he got wounded, and he couldn't be in the army. He came back home from Tennessee, and he wanted to learn welding. It's a practical subject, welding. So he goes to try to join this school to learn welding, and he has to take a test to see if he can go, and he can't pass the test because it's got math in it. He didn't know math. He didn't know math. 99, 95% of all the high school graduates in the United States could not pass that test. They haven't been taught. So he didn't know what to do. He goes to his mother. Her name is Margie Abbott. And she says, what am I going to do, Mom? And she says, well, I've heard of this Dr. Dell on Triad Math, and he teaches practical math, and it's easy to learn. And so he bought my program. It's not very expensive, but he bought it. And in about 3 or 4 months, he learned what I just told you, practical math. Went and took the test, passed the test for flying colors, went to welding school, became a welder, started his own business, and today he's very successful. And he'll tell you that if it hadn't been for Triad Math, he never could have done that. So that's one of the things I teach people in the Triad Math Army. Learn the math you need if you want to go into a technical subject, because the practical math, I didn't tell you this, but for example, I don't have it handy, but I had a company called Hane Training, and I trained over in the United States thousands and thousands of technicians. And the key to training them, hydraulics, pneumatics, electrical, op amps, on and on, was practical math. I'd give them enough math, then they could learn the technical subject. So when you take my practical math, you can now get in it. Now you can go learn a technical subject. He learned welding. Okay, that's an example. Another guy, young man who was not bad at math, pretty good at math, but was interested in the Air Force Academy. And he found out, he's from Florida. His name is James Dewey. He found out about trying math. So he takes my math. Now he goes beyond practical math. He goes all the way through 6 tiers. He learns calculus and differential equations. He learns all that time he's 17 years old. He goes for an interview at the Air Force Academy for an interview. And they put him in a class with juniors at the Air Force Academy. He knows more math than they do. And they go, oh my God, how do you know all this math? We've never had a high school student that know calculus, you know the fundamental theorem, you know differential equations, which are the workhorse of science engineering. He said, well, try math. Well, needless to say, look what that did for him. So that's just 2 examples. Now, I have hundreds of testimonials of students that didn't like math, were afraid of math, and then when they took my math, all of a sudden they weren't afraid of it, and many of them liked it. Big difference between liking something and not.
So why Dr. Dell?
My father's first name was Delbert, and they called him Dell. I'm Delbert Craig Hane, and my oldest son is Delbert Christopher Hane. So Delbert is the first name, and they call my dad Dell. And so my dad died when he was only 54 years old of cancer.
Wow, okay.
So it's now there's also a thing in math called Dell. So it's a double meaning.
Okay.
Dr. Dell in honor of my father, and my first name is Delbert, so it's Dell. So that's it.
And the students, they call you by Dr. Dell
Dr.
or
Dell.
Craig?
Yeah. No, Dr. Dell. I don't like Dr. Hane. I got my Ph.D. in math in 1966.
Wow.
And for 7 years, I was a professor teaching advanced theory, topology, functional analysis, all that at Indiana State University and Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology in Indiana. And everybody called me Dr. Hane. And I got tired of it. I don't like to be called Dr. Hane. So my friends all call me Craig, or colleagues like you. And then my students, but the students they don't want to call me first name, so I say, call me Dr. Dell.
I think it's cute. Dr. Dell is cute. But
Yeah.
I'll call you Craig. Anyway, Craig, I'm on your web, be nosy here. I'm on your website, craighane.com. When
Mm-hmm.
the podcast is released, I'll put the link in for here. It has a video library, it has your story, has information. One thing I was interested in when I was doing my nosying earlier on is the supracomputer. What is the supracomputer?
Have you heard of the Raspberry Pi?
I've heard of a Raspberry Pi, but I don't know if it's a
Okay.
mathematical term,
All
is
right.
it? Okay.
The Raspberry Pi is a little computer you can buy that comes out of, okay, the UK.
Okay.
Now, I told you Steve Wolfram was born in the UK, and then he's in the United States now with his company, Wolfram Research. He has a younger brother, 10 years younger, still in the UK. Okay. The Raspberry Pi years ago was $35. And for whatever his motive, Steve Wolfram bundled mathematics on the Raspberry Pi. The only other computer was ever bundled on was Steve Jobs' next computer, which was a $20,000 computer. So he bundled it on the Raspberry Pi. Now the problem is the Raspberry Pi is hard to use. It's a technical thing. So I took the Raspberry Pi and I made it easy to use. I've got an SD card in it that makes it very easy to use. And the reason I did it is because it's got Wolfram Alpha. And when you ask a question to Wolfram Alpha, you can store it in a notebook. You can't do that with the free version on the internet.
Okay.
So the supercomputer is essentially a version of the Raspberry Pi that's easy to use.
Okay, that makes sense. When I was looking at it earlier, I was fascinated by this little gadget, and I just thought, okay, I have to ask you more about that. Now, I'm looking then at your PDF that you mentioned before. So, Public School Math is Destroying the USA, which is a free PDF format, and you also have How and Why Homeschool Math Can Be Vastly Superior to Public School Math. So, what is
And
the
when,
difference between the second one?
well, the one you just mentioned, How and Why Homeschool Math Can Be Vastly Superior, is not on Amazon. That is strictly a web page on my site you go to, and every chapter is a PDF if you want to read it, or a video of me talking about it. And so that would be the place to go, probably the best one to go to learn all about it. But I didn't really explain in great depth there why public school math was so bad. So later I wrote the book, How and Why Public School Math Destroying the USA, and then I published that on Amazon. Because Amazon, it turns out, guess how much, this book's 100 and, I don't know, 165 pages. You order one copy of in the United States, if you order one copy of this from Amazon, they print it and deliver it to you if you're a Prime member for less than $5. Can you
Okay.
believe that?
Yeah.
Now, I can buy it for $2. I can buy this book from Amazon for $2.
Tell me
I
why.
started I started using Amazon for all of my notes and exercises.
Right.
I have about 18 books on Amazon, notes and exercises. Now here's a notes and exercise book on mastering a calculator, okay? Amazon will print that thing out, one copy of it, and print it and send it, if you're in the United States, and send it to you for like $5. So I use them as a printer. Now I don't know if you can get these printed out outside the United States. I tried to do it once for the South American country, and they couldn't get it. So I don't know what you can get in Ireland from Amazon.
I will
Or
find out. No, because we do have this different version. I think there's Amazon Germany. I think there's going to be Amazon Ireland soon as well. So no, I can research that, and if there is a link, I can put it in the podcast when it's finished. You've got also other information as well, Craig. You have like Golden Rule Map for struggling students, for STEM students, Golden Rule Map for
well,
successful students.
I wrote them up separately, and then I put them all together in this book.
So they're all in that. Oh, okay. Okay.
No, that's not true. That's not true. Not in this book. I've got another book called Golden Rule Math for All God's Children. I
Okay.
put them in that book.
Is that on Amazon as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. So I told you, Craig, I did my research.
Well, good. I'm pleased you did.
I did.
And by the way, here's what I'm going to do for you. Um, I'm going to give you a membership into the Triad Math Army at
Yes.
no cost to you. And you may either use it yourself or you may give it to someone you think would benefit from it.
You know something that is very kind of you, and I will use it or give it to somebody else that's struggling with maths. So it's a very, very kind
Well, you ought to go look at it
gesture.
yourself. You ought to go look at the wisdom tools.
You
Actually,
know,
for most people, the wisdom tools are more valuable than the math.
for me personally, Craig, I mean, I love math in terms of if I can understand it and the joy of being able to solve a problem from it is it's amazing because you just feel so intelligent.
Yeah,
It's when, the reason for this podcast is when you don't have that guidance, or you don't have
that's
that
right.
instruction, or you don't have the tips and tricks of how to actually understand the subject.
So I say to every one of your listeners, go to trymathinc.com/TMA. That stands for Triad Math Army. and join the Army. You have to give us your credit card to join it, but we won't charge it for 30 days. And if you decide after 30, when the 30 days is up, if you don't want to join, just say you don't, and we don't have to charge you at all. So you have 30 days to use it for free. And learn some math, learn some wisdom tools. Most people then stay in it because it's a great value to them. I think if you join the Tri-Math Army and take advantage of what you can learn and apply it, it's going to be worth, for young adults, it's going to be worth a tremendous amount of money. And not just money, but life improvements of all sorts. That's my belief, and I'm being told that by people that are members now. They say, "Oh my God, this is transforming my life." I mean, this is, these wisdom tools. Where did you learn these, Craig? And I go, well, I've learned them over the year, decades. Some of them I learned fairly recently, actually. In fact, you're never too old to improve your life. Now, granted, I'm in pretty good shape today, so I don't, I'm not looking for, but just helping people improves my life. Every time I get feedback from somebody that I've helped improve their life, it's karma, makes me feel better. That's my reward. There's nothing that's more uplifting than to have someone come to you and say, "Oh, Craig or Dr. Dell, thank you so much. You've helped me so much improve my life." Well, that's worth more than any money you could give me.
So what does the future now hold for you, Craig? I mean, obviously you're going to live to 105 initially. So what does the future hold for you? What is your plans? I mean, are you hoping to evolve Triad Math? Is it possible to change it, modernize it, or have you any other plans?
Well, Tri-Math is probably not going to change very much, a little bit maybe, not much, because I can't think of a better way to teach it. What will happen though? My real focus now is on the Tri-Math Army. And as time goes on, I will be adding some additional wisdom tools as I think of them. Um, but there's already over 2 dozen of them, so there's already a bunch of them there, and they're not something you can just do overnight. I would say when somebody joins the Tri-Math Army, they'll be learning from it for years and years and years to come. I mean, it took me decades to learn the things I'm teaching. So I don't think somebody's going to learn it in a year or two. It's on and on and on. And it depends on your situation, which ones you want to learn. So you go down and you look at them, and some of them you're ready for, some of them you're not, and so on and so forth. Everybody's different. What does the future hold? Nobody knows. It's unpredictable. I don't know. I'm optimistic. I always have been. I think that one of the things that I say when you study the Tri-Math Army site, one of our one of the things as a sapient species we've got to do is eliminate war. If we don't figure out how to eliminate war, we're going to destroy ourselves. We have technologies now, and we're going to have technologies that could literally destroy civilization as we know it. And if we continue the wars, the one thing I like about Donald Trump, he said, "I want to stop the killing." Okay? Europe's pretty upset with Donald Trump now because he talked to Putin directly. And Europe said, "No, we got to be involved in that. Zelensky's got to be involved in that." Donald Trump, "Screw you. We're going to stop the war. We're going to stop the war. And we're not going to ask the European countries what to do. We're going to stop the war." Now they can be involved in it, but this whole Ukraine thing is crazy. And then we got the similar problem in the Mideast with Gaza. And there's other parts of the world too. It's not just that. We got to stop the war. So I believe in the United States, for example, that if I get 1 million people to join the Army and learn the math they need to have a technical career, that will increase our economy. And I explain this in the book. That'll make our economy much stronger. We can produce more. I think what AI is going to let us do is produce all the material goods that anybody would ever want. The question is, can we distribute it?
Right.
How's it going to be governed? How's it going to be distributed? And we don't know the answer to that. We're still primitive. Our civilization is still damn primitive. We're tribal. Amy Chua wrote a book called Political Tribes. If you haven't read it, I recommend the book to you. Are you familiar with J.D. Vance? See, you're
Yes.
from Ireland.
Yeah. J.D.
Okay.
Vance. Yeah.
Okay. Have you read Hillbilly Elegy?
No.
Okay. When that came out years ago, I read it right away. And I was very impressed with J.D. Vance and Hillbilly Elegy. Now, he was a law student at Yale. He came from Appalachia in the United States, hillbilly, and he went to Ohio State and graduated. Then he went to Yale Law School. Now, that's a completely different political environment, social environment. And he had a law teacher there that saved him. He would have not made it through Yale, called Amy Chua. She's Chinese, actually, married to, I think, a Jewish husband. Anyway, she saved him. And that was all in Hillbilly Elegy. Well, then about 2 years later, she came out with a book called Political Tribes. So I got that book. I would recommend that book to anybody. Read Political Tribes. Ever since I read that book, now today, I think of everything in terms of tribalism, because it is. We're all tribal. It's all in terms of God knows you. God knows you know it in Ireland, for God's sakes. Look at the tribalism you've had in Ireland. I mean,
Yeah.
but we've had it everywhere. It's not just Ireland. It's everywhere. It's worldwide. And we haven't, the tribes haven't learned to live together properly yet. But I think AI may give us enough material goods that we can do that. Because what happens if you have enough food and clothes and shelter and energy for everybody,
Yeah.
and you figure a way to distribute it so everybody can have all the basic things you need for a physical life? Then why do we have to have war?
Yeah.
What if we took the United States, by the way, I hate to say that, but we're the warmongering country. This goddamn country has been the warmonger. We're the warmonger. I mean, it goes back to uh, just think of Vietnam. I mean, of Iraq and what George W. Bush did. It was horrible. Uh, I mean, and then Afghanistan and so on and so forth. And it's so I'm all for. I believe that as a species, we've got to evolve to where we can have our tribes work together. Good example is Vietnam. How many people died in Vietnam when we had the Vietnam War? And that was all the United States caused that. Lyndon Johnson, it was all a con deal. We've had what we call the neocons in this country that control our government. They've controlled both parties. Up until Donald Trump came along, the neocons controlled both parties. We didn't have Democrats and Republicans, but they were controlled by the neocons, okay? And that's what had the Vietnam War. Well, now, today, Vietnam, we're partners with them. Why don't we do business with them? If you took the money we spend on defense and put it into partnerships, well, that's my belief. And I talk all about that in the Triad Math Army. And so I really, so I don't know what the future holds. I will say this: we will either evolve to an upper level as a civilization or we'll die.
Well, you're a fascinating man to talk to, Craig. You have so many stories and so much knowledge and information. As always, let me say on behalf of myself, the Wellbeing Career podcast, thanks so much for joining me today. As soon as the podcast is released, all the links we placed in that you can contact Craig directly and you can join the Triad Math team. So thanks so much, Craig, for joining me today.
Thank you, David. My pleasure. Good luck to you.